Lee Semin recalls the time when his life was in shambles. He says that just one step may mean nothing to some people, but for those who have fallen, it feels like a cliff. Semin recalls when he found himself face to face with a mysterious robed man. Semin states that when helping someone who has fallen, just one word is enough. The mysterious person addresses Semin and tells him that he is not a coward, which brings Semin to tears. Those words change everything. This world turned into a post-apocalyptic wasteland when hostile monsters showed up. They divided the world into raiders and non-raiders. At the Raider Management Bureau, Semin is nervously waiting for his turn. He explains that he is a prospective raider, otherwise known as the Awakened Ones. These special people have their aura levels checked regularly by the Raider Management Bureau. To become a raider, you first undergo an awakening judgment which determines if you have enough aura to take the next exam. Only people with enough aura are eligible to take the test. Semin walks in the lab nervously to meet a woman. She says that they've already done this a few times, so she will skip the explanation. She also tells him that he has to go to the military next year. She says that they postponed it because of his evaluations, but they can't delay it anymore. Semin tells her that he knows, and she asks if she should arrange counseling for him. She tells him that he can't keep going like this, but Semin says that he would just like to take the test and leave for the day. She complies with his request, but reminds him that he must enlist for the military next year. He sits inside a big machine where his aura levels are measured out to be around 103, the same as last year. Semin recalls that aura levels usually start around 100 and gradually increase, but he is different. His aura levels have stayed the same since he awakened years ago. Even though he trained with all his might and finally realized that he has no talent as a raider, the same number before him once again never changed. The woman tells him that the test is done and takes his signature. Semin reminisces about the time that he thought he would eventually reach his goal, but reality is so harsh. He painfully thanks the woman and leaves. He finally reaches his dark and sad home, which is a total mess. He turns his laptop on, remembering that the game rewards are good today. He notices a weird notification on the screen that says qualification requirements confirmed and gives him an option that says Transcendent Network. Feeling curious, he clicks on the option, and it takes him to a strange website. He sees different boards including General Members Board, Tip Board, and Special Members Board. He clicks on the General Members Board and starts reading different posts. He scrolls through the posts, mocking the users and calling them idiots. He eagerly engages with the site, noticing that there are still people with high school syndromes. He turns into a keyboard warrior and starts aggressively typing, thinking that someone needs to smack these kids back to reality. He roasts them, calling them basement dwellers and telling them to take a walk outside. He decides to check the news and notices that a raider, An Sungjun, achieved the platinum mark. All the commenters on the post are impressed by Sungjun, expressing how rare it is to have a platinum raider. Semin starts shaking with anger and frustration. An Sungjun, the name brings him anger and unpleasant memories. He hits his desk and recalls how the two of them used to see each other face to face every day. He remembers his painful past, with Sungjun beating him down and bullying him. He remembers how Sungjun crushed him without mercy and gets annoyed that he's platinum. Semin becomes bitter as he grabs one of his exercise goals written on a note and says that everything is annoying. He crushes the note in his hand and closes his laptop, admitting that he is a loser. He dropped out of school with hopes of becoming a raider, but he's never even qualified to take the exam. Suddenly, he gets another pop-up notification that says qualification confirmed. He opens his laptop to see the same site again, and someone says that they have a newcomer, a transcender, and tells everyone to mind their manners. He starts talking smack to this user, offering to send him money because he's a raider. They both talk smack to each other, and the user says that he stopped counting his age after 140, saying that age doesn't matter for transcendence. Semin laughs at him, thinking that this guy is taking his internet character seriously. He notices one of the members, Granny Wizard Aliana, saying that she would love to see this guy for real. Semin is not afraid, daring her to come see him right now, wondering what's the big deal about the meeting. Suddenly, a strange rift starts to appear behind him. He nervously turns around to see a woman emerging from it, who asks if he is Lee Semin. Semin jumps out of his seat in shock as an intimidating wizard lady appears from another dimension. She says that she came to see what kind of guy he was. Semin nervously asks who she is as she looks at him with scornful eyes. Granny Ileana just casually walks into his room from another dimension, and Semin is too stunned to speak. She casts a spell and uses vines to grab Semin. She walks away coldly, telling him to stop flailing around. Semin can barely breathe and almost passes out, which confuses Ileana. She wonders why he's so weak. Semin pathetically starts begging her to spare him. She comments that his skills are worse than a bug and wonders how he even managed to connect to the Transcendent Network. She flings him around in the air with her vines and asks him his identity. He says that he'll tell her if she lets him down. She immediately accepts his request and removes her vines, causing him to fall face first to the ground. He frantically asks her who she is, and she says she's Anna. She mocks him, saying how much he was talking online. She asks him if he's a fake raider. He fumbles his words as he explains that he didn't lie. He isn't a raider yet, but he will be soon. She just asks him again if it's true or not. Semin explains that in his world, some people have a thing called aura, which qualifies them to become a raider. Not everyone has aura, but he has it. Feeling amused, Ayan asks him to show her this aura. He puts his hands together and starts mustering as much aura as he can, like his life depends on it. But it's not long before his aura poofs away and Ayana smiles menacingly, asking him if that was it. Semin says yes, and she bursts into laughter. Her eye starts glowing. She asks if he's kidding. She flexes on him by making his entire apartment messier than it already was. She looks at him like a demon, and he is stunned by her overwhelming power. Semin says that a transcendent being was in essence a monster. She gives him a bombastic side eye, and Semin starts to cower again. He begs her to spare him and wonders if this is it for him. Someone starts knocking on his door, asking if he's okay and if an earthquake just occurred. For some reason, he lies, saying that he's okay. Ayana seems to be tweaking out, saying that she used all her points because of this trashy loser. She becomes enraged, demanding to know how a loser like him even accessed the Transcendent Network. He nervously tries to explain that he doesn't know either, saying that he just turned his laptop on and it happened. She asks him what a laptop is, and he explains that it's the shiny box on his desk. She starts observing the laptop, wondering if it's a communication device. She tells him to keep explaining, and Semin says that there's nothing more to explain. Feeling curious, Ayana asks him to at least tell her about himself. He says that there's nothing much to tell, explaining that he went through a lot of stuff like everyone else and ended up here. She sits on his desk and asks if he's living this pigsty of a life in the end. She calls him pathetic, and he says he knows, but she also admits that he must have at least tried. He looks up in surprise, thinking that her stone-cold words were filled with comfort. Trusting her intentions, he started telling his story. He was an orphan who was luckily taken in by his current parents, and during his school years, he was evaluated to be an awakened person. Things were going great except the extreme bullying he faced by Sumjin, which caused him to drop out. His life took a nosedive after that, as he became a shut who just played games and ate all day. The only thing he had going for him, his aura, also remained the same for years and didn't increase. Ayana says that his story is quite dull and says that she has to go now. Semin doesn't get in her way, and she tells him to be careful talking smack on the website, or she'll come find him again and end him for real. She also tells him to post an apology letter, and Semin says that he'll keep it all in mind. Before she leaves, she also tells him to remember that the world is inherently unfair, but he should still go out and do something. She says that he is human after all, so he has to live. Overwhelmed and touched, Semin asks her if they can meet again. She smiles and tells him to transcend as she leaves. Semin sits down and ponders his fate. He wonders if he can stand beside them and actually become a transcendent. Semin is a changed man after his encounter with Ayana. He humbly writes an apology letter in the Transcendent Network. He addresses all of his transcendent brothers and sisters and claims that he is about to blow their minds. Semin explains that since that day, watching the Transcendent Network has become a part of his daily routine. He interacts with the different members. He notices that a member of Black Lion Kain posted a photo. Kain was born as a slave to a noble family and became a mercenary with stolen swordsmanship after his mother died at his master's hand. He ended all the noble bloodlines and became the strongest warrior of the continent. Semin asks him if he took this family photo on his last trip. Semin comments that the child looks just like his parents. He notices that another member, Sword Demon Persian, is also online, who is the continent's #1 sword master. Persian greets Semin and asks how he can talk to a girl he has feelings for. He doesn't really have an answer either and thinks that they are close enough to call each other brothers. Semin asks if he's feeling lonely and starts to give his crazy advice. He says that Persian has to first move to the woman's heart with an emotional message like asking where their wings are. She will be confused and ask what he means, to which he will proudly explain that he confused her for an angel. This will totally get her smitten. He continues his delusional scenario, stating that if the woman smiles in response to that amazing pickup line, you should then reply saying that your heart might explode because of her smile. Semin, the absolute Riz Master Wannabe, types away all his wisdom on the board. Persian is somehow thankful for his corny advice, promising to come meet him when he has enough points. Semin explains that while he was interacting with these transcendent beings, he noticed a common trait, the executing ability. He states that they never procrastinate, they always keep their promises to themselves, and they never compromise or run. Semin says that unlike them, his reality is nothing but laziness. He starts crying, telling himself that someone like him can't become a raider. He chugs down a bottle and falls on the bed. He says that if life was going to turn out like this, it shouldn't have given him the hope to begin with. He explains that he has never thought of anything other than becoming a raider. He says that he wants to become a real raider and prove himself. He recalled the faces of his bullies, saying that he wanted to proudly show them all. But after 6 years of being stuck at the same aura level, and now he can't even get out of bed. He cries, gets back on the messaging board, chugs down more bottles, and passes out on his desk. He wakes up later to a horrifying thought. He wonders if he wrote something weird on the forum while he is drunk. He quickly scrolls through the forum to realize that he rambled about his problems, but everyone is supportive of him. They all try to motivate and cheer him up, which brings him to tears. He doesn't even notice that something just appeared right next to him. He asks if this is Semin, which finally alerts him. Semin nervously wonders who it is, thinking that the voice sounds rough, like it's been ground by iron. Semin realizes that it must be one of the Transcendent members. Suddenly, the thing touches his back and Semin flinches in pain. The creature starts rambling about powerlessness, depression, weak will, cursed constitution, saying that it's called severed veins. Semin thinks that it feels like snakes are crawling all over his body. He recalls the face of Sungjun again, which gives him the strength to fight back. The creature amusedly asks if Semin still hasn't given up. Semin snaps out of the struggle to notice a completely different scenery all around him. The Transcendent tells him that he has a good name. Semin asks where they are, and the mysterious figure introduces himself. He calls himself Dako Chiyama, the greatest martial artist in history, and declares that Semin is not a coward. Chiyama's words bring Semin to tears. Semin admits that he thought Grand Wizard Liana is incredibly strong, but he is beyond comparison. Chiyama tells Semin to gather points and access the tips board, as he's put something there just for him. Semin chases after him frantically, but suddenly returns to his apartment and falls face first to the ground. Semin wonders if that was a dream, but notices a cut on his arm. He realizes that he still feels hurt, so this is not a dream. Chiyama's words keep ringing in his head. He gets up and says that he suddenly feels light. He wonders if he should clean up his room. Putting in work, he cleans up all the mess and proudly stretches. He looks down at his hands and says that the only trash left in this room is himself. He tells himself to remember the meeting. He puts on a tracksuit, telling himself to remember those words. He tells himself that he is not a coward and steps out of his house, feeling motivated to change. He comes back and chows down on some food, saying he can't believe he is so hungry after just a 10-minute run. He tells himself that this won't do and goes one more time. He runs through the streets with passion, but stops to catch his breath. Deep down, he knows that it was too much to handle alone. He walks into a bodybuilding gym and is surprised by a hunk of a man standing there. Semin is surprised when another man walks over and greets him. The man asks him if he's there to work out. He introduces himself as Coach Diokba, and Semin introduces himself back. The coach immediately knows what's up, telling Semin that he can smell why he's here. He looks at him intensely and asks if he just had chicken. The coach scolds him for having a cheat meal, saying that that kind of thing doesn't fly with them. Semin apologizes and the coach gets to work. He says that they should start by warming up, which catches Semin a bit off guard. The coach yells that since he's come this far, they might as well start immediately. Noticing his arm muscles, the coach thinks that he's done some exercising before. Semin explains that he did a little bit in the past. The coach is fired up. He tells Semin that he has a good foundation, and they should get him back in shape. Semin runs on the treadmill endlessly, and the coach asks him if he's tired. Semin admits that he's a little tired and needs to rest a bit. The coach is not going easy on him. He says that if Semin collapses, then so be it. He will get back up if he's meant to. The coach tells him what needs to be done to change, and Semin realizes that he can't give up. He screams out but keeps going, claiming that he doesn't lack aura but confidence. The coach excitedly tells him to keep running just like that till he drops. Eventually, the sun is setting and Semin is still working out under the coach's instructions. He trembles with exhaustion, saying that he can't keep going anymore. The coach smiles warmly, hoping to see him again tomorrow. Semin looks up to see the coach practically sparkling, who tells Semin that he is a wonderful young man. Semin thanks Coach Diokwa and smiles lightly. Semin realizes that it's been a while since he's felt this sense of accomplishment. Semin took a step forward today, so he recalls Chiyama's advice to check the tips board. He doesn't get access to the board because he doesn't have enough points. Semin is confused, wondering how he can get points. Suddenly, he notices a member quest for himself, which is to lose his weight to less than 100 kilograms. Semin screams in frustration, wondering if it's even possible for him to get his weight under 100 kilograms. Semin's goal is right before him, 100 kilograms. He runs and runs, determined to get his weight below 100 kegs. His coach keeps motivating him to push forward, and he screams due to his intense training. Looking at himself in the mirror, Semin thinks that he lost a little weight. This motivates him to do his best again. He goes on more runs and gets to the gym. He says that he will do some light cardio with interval training as he keeps going. A girl working out takes a notice of him, wondering if he's running again. She recalls seeing him for the first time, thinking that a wild boar was chasing after her. She realizes that he has lost quite a bit. Semin keeps pushing his body, determined to get stronger. He tells himself that he is not a coward and does his intense pull-ups. He exclaims that he will achieve it, even if he dies. The girl notices him working hard and decides to talk to him. She tells him that it's rare to see someone working so hard. Semin is locked in and he won't be easily distracted. He politely takes his leave, which angers the girl. She can't believe that he brushed her off like that after she made an effort to talk to him. Semin realizes that the woman had the smell of the filthy raider lingering on her. He realizes that she must have surpassed the blue mark. Semin explains that raiders' physical abilities are superior to normal humans. He knows that even the lowest grade raiders are far stronger than ordinary humans. To add to this, the grand rewards they receive for their efforts also instills a sense of privilege. He recalls how he realized this for sure during his trainee days. The other trainees bullied and beat him, telling him to quit. Semin runs and admits that there is an insurmountable wall between raiders and ordinary people. The girl from earlier is bitter as she runs by him, calling him a fat uncle and trying to mock him. She tells him that no matter how much he tries, it won't make a difference and easily surpasses him in speed. Semin gets annoyed, but he doesn't get discouraged. He comes home wondering what kind of new posts have been made. He notices Sister Iana, recalling how she seemed scary at first, but turned out to be kind. He shakes his head, thinking that someone like her is too far out of his reach. He decides to start with a quest, praying that he's reached his goal weight. The website calculates his weight only to reveal that he is at 100.02 kgs. Semin is flustered by the minor difference, wondering if going to the restroom will reduce that 0.02 kilograms. Even after he tries that, he checks the website again, which now claims that he is at 100.0005. Semin calls the system petty and clears his nose. This gives him the edge he needed, and he finally clears the quest. His weight reaches 99.99 kilograms, and as a reward for completing the quest, he gets 100 points. Semin celebrates, but immediately encounters another wall. The tips board can only be accessed by members that are level 2 or higher. Upgrading your level requires 100 points, and Semin does so right away. He finally opens the tip board and is blown away by all the different posts. He realizes that reading tips on the board costs 100 points and posting a tip costs 200 points. But for each view of your post, you will get 10 points. He notices some tips by Ayana. He notices that as a reward for joining the tips board, he can read one tip post for free. He finds the post made especially for him by Chiyama and clicks to read it. Chiyama explains the problems Semin is facing with his aura, saying that the proper cultivation method will restore the circulation of his inner energy. Chiyama imparts this transcendent skill to Semin, instructing Semin to worship him and follow the incantation. Semin follows his instructions, realizing that he has always regarded his aura as something to be conquered. However, Chiyama treated it as if it was a separate life form with its own will. Semin is once again brought to tears, realizing that this was the answer all along. Semin continues his training, focusing on his aura and trying to muster it. He thinks that the training isn't easy, but if it can help him escape his condition, he will do it hundreds of times. He tries to control the flow of his aura, trying to imagine it as threading a needle. He recalls Chiyama's teachings, who explained that aura flows like water and spreads like roots. Semin realizes that he needs to concentrate on the points where his aura flow is blocked and break through it in one go. He tries his hardest to execute this technique, and eventually he manages to do it. He celebrates so hard that falls over. He says that he is going to get stronger. At a private raid training academy, a bunch of people are training. The master of the trainees gets called and comes down to see Semin. Semin has completed, changed his appearance, and turned into a Chad. He greets his master Zhang Xiaotian confidently. The master immediately recognizes him and starts crying, saying that he always knew Semin could do it. The master hugs him and calls for celebration, but Semin explains that he came here for something else. He manifests his aura and tells his master to take a look at it. Master Zhang Xiaotian tells everyone to keep up their training and steps out with Semin. He takes him to the aura measuring device. Semin asks how it is, and his master tells him to see for himself. He opens his eyes to see a remarkable improvement. His aura is now over 1,000. The master congratulates him, stating that his curse has been lifted. Semin cries, realizing that he just had to circulate his aura for a month and he's already improved so much. Master Zhang Xiaotian asks how he even managed to do this, and Semin explains that he followed someone's advice just to see if it would work. Master Zhang Xiaotian suggests that they find out more with a sparring match. He explains that he has a cocky student that needs a reality check and tells Semin that he can easily handle him. Semin agrees to participate, and they are both brought to the sparring ring. The cocky student questions Semin's aura level, and Master Zhang Xiaotian states that it is over 1,000. The student wonders why his master is pitting someone who barely reaches 1,000 against him. He introduces himself as Yu Jin Se. The two go into fighting stance as their match begins. Jin Si is confident at his high aura levels, ready to crush Semin. Semin easily blocks his attack and punches back at high speed. His punch can't hit Jin Si, and he mockingly asks Semin if he's alright. Semin backs away and Jin Si admits that he at least has the basics down. Jin Si charges at him with a high kick, declaring that the match is going to get real from here on. Semin falls to the ground and Jin Si charges at him. Unshaken, Semin grabs onto Jin Si's leg and throws him to the ground. Jin Si is surprised by the sudden grappling technique. Jin Si hits the ground hard. Semin realizes that typically raiders do not practice martial arts. They don't even get a chance to use martial arts because they are fighting against non-humanoid monsters. Semin tries to tackle Jin Si, but he kicks him away. The other trainees laugh at him, saying that he's trying to kick the air. Jin Si gets embarrassed, but he's not about to give up. He gets back up and both men get back into fighting stance. He charges at Semin, who dodges out of the way and counterattacks with an uppercut, which sends Jin Si flying. He falls to the ground and Semin tackles him. They struggle to fight each other off when Jin Si gets an anger buff. The others yell for Jin Si and Semin breathes coldly. Later, Semin is on another run and recalls the aftermath of the fight. Jin Si ended up getting defeated, but Master Zhang Hoon tells Semin to not be too happy. He says that this is the result of his grueling practice. Semin realizes that it was just a little late, but everything was properly building up inside him all along. He admits that it's only natural that he defeated that guy. Semin continues working out when he notices some kids standing by the door. He notices a poster in their hands and realizes what it is. It's a flyer for the gym which features Semin's before and after picture. Trying to act cool, Semin flexes his muscles in front of the kids, leaving them amazed. One of them calls out to Semin, asking if his body really changed this much in just 3 months. Semin confidently tells them that it's true. One of the boys asks Semin if he can become like him too. Semin tells him that the kid has the odor wrong. They wonder what he means when a huge man appears behind them with an equally huge smile and amazing mustache. Semin tells them that they should first pay their respects to the boss there. The boys nervously turn around to see the giant man behind them, who happily greets the new members. Coach Diukba introduces himself and offers to talk with the boys in his office. They nervously agree to his offer and only their screams can be heard coming from the room. Semin tries to pay it no mind while he continues his workout. After a while, the coach returns with the two boys looking lifeless and drained. He tells Semin that the boys want to be just like him. They decided to follow the same course that he followed. Semin laughs at the brave claim, asking the coach if these boys can hold out. The coach says that they claimed no cancellation and even stamped it. He says that these friends have a lot of determination while they awkwardly smile in the corner. Semin cheers for the boys and they nervously prepare for their training. Later, Semin remembers something. He opens the Transcendent Network to check the new martial arts technique. It has been accessible via mobile and Semin is here to continue the grind. He starts following the martial arts training while the two newbies are dying in a corner from exhaustion. They wonder what Semin is doing and notice his aura flowing around him. They realize that he must be a raider, which would make him their senior. They curiously watch him while he trains. Semin says that these days when he goes to the gym, he feels strange eyes on him. He notices the skinny newbie from a while ago, watching him with starry eyes. It makes Semin uncomfortable as he wonders what the kid wants. Noticing the newbie's strange expression, Semin proclaims that he is not into guys. Suddenly, the newbie calls out to Semin. He says that he's been watching Semin for a while and noticed something about him. Semin nervously asks him what it is and the kid says that it's his identity. The newbie tells him that there's no need to hide and Semin claims that he is not hiding anything. The newbie asks him if he's a raider, which surprises Semin. Semin tells him that he is and thanks the heavens that it's not what he thought it was. Semin tells him that he isn't a formal raider just yet, but he is going to take the test soon. The newbie remembers that the test is in the month and expresses that he's jealous. He says that he wants to take the test too, which completely shocks Semin. The newbie manifests his aura, explaining that he is also an awakened one. Semin asks why he's at the gym instead of the Raiders Academy, to which the kid explains that his parents told him it's a dangerous thing. They told him to focus on his studies until he becomes an adult. He says that he still wants to build up his strength. Semin knows that there are quite a few late bloomers among the top raiders. To truly become a raider, you need to dedicate countless time and effort. The kid proclaims that he will definitely become a raider, to which Semin asks why. The newbie tells him that the answer is obvious. It's because being a raider is ranked first in the career survey for students in Korea. Of course, that's all because it's such a cool job. Semin understands the kid's drive and asks him if he can manipulate his aura. The kid claims that he can sort of do it, and Semin tells him to give it a go. He starts circulating his aura flow and Semin watches him closely. Semin is impressed that he can do it properly and asks who taught him. The kid smiles and explains that he watched a beginner's course by Raider Sungjin. That name again with so many bitter memories. Seven plays it cool, telling the kid to keep practicing because aura control is important. Seven motivates him by telling him to meet him at the top one day, and the kid smiles warmly. Seven notices the two kids laughing together and thinks that it's a good time for him to start training. Coming back to his senses, he says that he needs to try hard as well. He gets back home to see another interesting post on the tips board, titled Fundamentals of Aura Manipulation. Seven says that just reading the title has gotten him excited. He tells Chiyama to wait for him a little longer. Seven admits that the tips really help to hone the basics. He notices the members talking to each other and smiles in relief. He's glad that it's another peaceful day in the dimension. Getting his head back in the game, Seven decides to search for the Raiders test. He realizes that the in-depth test this year is also random. The in-depth test can be considered the pinnacle of the Raider qualification exam. He looks up a bunch of information related to the test. Seven realizes that this particular test is always unique and no one knows its contents. Even if you pass all the prior tests, it's possible to fail at the in-depth test. He recalls that there was a debate on this last year, wondering what this test even helps Raiders with. He thinks that it's all about fighting and killing monsters. Funnily enough, he gets an ad claiming to predict the contents of this year's in-depth test. Seven shrugs, stating that only ambiguous guys spend money on things like this. He is not beating the allegations when he immediately picks up his phone and calls the number from the ad, bombarding them with questions regarding the test. He puts his phone down, stating that this is all the preparation he needs and the world will know his name. The next day, he is working out at the gym again when he notices a strange presence. Looking around, he notices the same girl from long ago who mocked him. She calls out to him again, complimenting him on his amazing weight loss. He tells her to not bother him and go on her way. He clearly hasn't let his grudge, and she apologizes for what she said that time. She introduces herself as Kim Seonha. Semin also introduces himself to her. She asks him if he's a raider, and he tells her that he's taking a test this time. She tells him good luck and explains that she will be cheering for her company's rookie. He smiles, hearing about this rookie. She tells him that that kid is their company's ace. Semin suggests that they make a bet between him and her company's ace to see who wins. Semin suggests that the loser has to grant the winner's wish. Seema asks if he has the guts for that. The two continue beefing with each other. On the day of the exam, Semin is surrounded by too many people. He tries to calm himself down, placing his trust in Chiyama and Ayana. He decides to lock in. He can't let his pride fail this time. He hypes himself up, saying that he's got this, and confidently walks into the test hall. The exam starts with a written test. He realizes that they raised the difficulty this year as if it has many trick questions. Semin isn't worried though, saying that the test needs to be this difficult to make the studying worth it. He finishes answering and notices that everyone else is confused. Semin is worried about the in-depth test as the bell rings for the written test. The examiner warns the students to put their pen down, but 3 desperate students do not comply. He shoots his aura beam at them and tells them that they are disqualified. Semin realizes that he has the golden mark. The examiner explains that the raiders need to risk their lives following the rules, and just a little bit of leniency can put the entire team at risk. He warns them to never act on their own and wishes them good luck for the remaining tests. All the students nervously walk out the room. Semin is confident that he won't fail despite the test being hard. Semin knows that the required aura to qualify for the test is 5,000 and his was at 5,100 last time he checked. He starts circulating his aura to practice, and some of the other participants make fun of him for training here. Semin tries to keep himself calm, but the ominous thoughts keep creeping in. He tries to remember the advice of Chiyama and starts circulating his aura. Cultivating his aura brings back many memories. He remembers when he first mentioned that he wanted to be a raider, his adoptive parents believed in him. The examiner notices Semin cultivating his aura and warns him to do it in a safe place. Semin apologizes, but the examiner reassures him, stating that there are times when principles don't apply. He tells Semin that he had to cultivate his aura in forests to survive against monsters. Semin asks if he's gone through many tough battles, and the examiner laughs it off, admitting that that's how the profession of raiders is. The examiner tells him that every battle is dangerous, but the gate subjugation is particularly hard. He says that he encountered many strange beings around the gate. He states that there is a monster called Black Castle and he wasn't able to officially register because he wasn't able to defeat it. There haven't been any records of encounters since then. The Gold Raider recalls that no matter how much he attacked, the monster kept coming after him. Before he can finish his story, a woman walks in telling them that the aura measurement test is about to end. The examiner offers to guide Semin there. He tells Semin good luck, who smiles and thanks the experienced raider. He walks over to the test line and there's a commotion over something. He asks another participant what the fuss is about, and he tells Semin something unbelievable just happened. The person that just got measured had an aura of over 30,000. Semin is shocked at the ridiculous number. Semin can't believe someone had such a high aura. You and the top-notch raiders have around 20,000. The other participant tells Semin that the person is Bang Yubai, who is supposedly very beautiful too. Semin wonders if it's the ace rookie from Selma's company and gets a little worried. Feeling curious, Semin asks if there were any disqualifications. He starts to feel a little worried, remembering that he only had 5,100 aura last time he checked, and no one seems to have less than 500. The line quickly finishes with all the participants going in one after another. Finally, it's Semin's turn to get measured. They put him inside the machine and begin measuring. He gets a reading of 7180, which surprises Semin. He starts celebrating, thanking everyone for their help. Glad to pass, Semin waltzes out of there. Later that evening, Semin is sitting in a cafe enjoying the sunset as he thinks that life is so beautiful. He hears some commotion from nearby and notices Xiona standing there. He thinks that she's mocking up on purpose and watches begrudgingly. Suddenly, he feels someone grab him from behind, which startles the life out of him. It's the newbie from his gym, asking how his test went. Semin happily says that his test went awesome and they go out to eat together. He treats both newbies to pork belly and tells them to get stuffed. The kid asks him why he doesn't just open a barbecue business since he is so skilled at grilling. They all joke around and eat together when a group of people walk in. It's the Xiaotian and the people in her company. Semin's mood gets totally ruined once again. She introduces him to Yubai, letting her know that he's the one who bet that he could beat her. Yubai introduces herself with a menacing smile. Semin recognizes the name as the same person who scored an aura of 30,000. Xiona tells him not to forget about their bet, and he asks when he ever said that in despair. Once they're done enjoying their meals, Semin and the kids head home feeling satisfied. One of them asks who the pretty girls from earlier were. Semin tells them not to judge people based on appearance and tells them to choose their friends carefully. He says they should hit up the karaoke next. Just as they are about to leave, something strange catches their attention. Semin suddenly has a bad feeling and tells them that they should get out of there fast. He recognizes this feeling from earlier. Semin knows that a gate is going to open. Before they can get too far, an interdimensional rift appears out of nowhere in the middle of the street and terrifying monsters begin to emerge. A hostile monster called the Sinkus emerges from the gate and lets out a piercing roar. People start frantically running away. Semin is too terrified to even move. Suddenly, Siama's company steps in, calling themselves the Iron Horse Company and telling everyone to evacuate. They quickly get to work trying to control the situation. The Iron Horse Company is known for its elite small group. They take out their weapons and charge at the monster. Siona fights off the Sinkus when more monsters known as Jorg emerge from the gate. They ignore her and run past to attack the normal people. Siona can't help them all as they beg to be saved. Semin tries to gather his courage, reminding himself that he trained for this for years. Before Semin can move or help anyone, his junior in Jazz steps up to help others. He smacks the Jorg with a pipe and struggles to fight it off. Semin realizes that this boy, who never even received proper training, was accurately grasping the flow of the battle. His junior in Jay was a genius. Semin realizes that one day he will certainly become a great raider. Suddenly, the Jorg lunges at Inja and bites his arm. It throws him to the ground and is about to badly hurt him when Semin steps in. He musters his aura around his fist, but just as he's about to attack, someone else throws a spear at the beast and takes it out in one strike. The raider asks Semin if he's alright, and he lets him know that someone has been badly injured. He holds on to Injay, telling him to hang in there. The raider immediately comes over to help with bandages. He tells Injay to hold on until the rescue arrives. Semin uses aura to stop the bleeding, but Injay's arm is messed up. The Jorgs approach Semin, but Xiaotian drives them off. Semin asks her if she's okay, and she says that they're quite nimble for being so big. Putting their attention on the Sinkus, Xiaotian explains that she's aiming for its vital spot, but getting to its head is hard. Xiaotian attacks the beast, along with the help of the support squad. She charges up her sword with aura and launches her attack at the Sinkus, hoping to defeat it in one go. The giant monster falls down and stops moving. Xiaotian manages to take it out, but exhausts all her strength. The healing team rushes to help the injured. Finally, the gate begins to close. Semin realizes that only 10 seconds remain until complete annihilation. Suddenly, he notices something strange. Something is emerging from the gate. Semin is horrified to see that another monster is emerging from the gate, and it is an orc. Semin kneels on the ground with a horrified expression on his face as he holds Inja in his lap. He looks at the gate from where the monsters were after him and sees that the monster was still staring at him and Inja even though they were safe now, like a hungry beast ready to devour them in a mere second if given the opportunity. Inja exclaims his name as he comes back to his conscious. Semin quickly diverts his attention from the monster inside the gate staring at them to the now heaving Inja and asks him if he is doing alright. Inja, having trouble getting many words out, asks him while heaving if the person that he was trying to save is alive and well now, and if he is not in such a condition for nothing. Semin smiles to assure him and tells him that Inji was the one who saved him. Inji smiles brightly and jokes that after all he is still a trainee raider, so this much should be possible for him. Semin nods as the night fades away. After that day, life goes on for Semin, and he completes his run and stops to catch his breath, thinking back to how the city recovered quickly and returned to daily life like normal. However, he is stuck inside his own brain because facing actual monsters was very different than what he had imagined and anything that he had experienced in the simulations during training. He thinks back to how they would not have survived that day if Shiona and her team was not nearby to help and save them. That night he spends his time at the gym trying to get jacked. There is some sort of urgency in the way he works out as he remembers back to how useless he felt when he was fighting the monsters that day. The director of the gym comes up to him and tells him that he should head home now. Semin stops exercising and wonders how long he has been exercising for before he can leave. However, the director asks him if he wants to have a drink with him before he heads home. The two of them sit in a stall as they eat side dishes with their drink. The director explains how sorry he feels for what happened to Inji. Semin asks him if he knows that he is an awakened Oon. The director nods, saying that he knows that Semin passed the first test. Semin agrees but tells him that when he actually faced against the monsters he couldn't move at all. It was like he froze on the spot. He takes a shot and says that he hesitated before he could do anything, and because of that hesitation, Inji ended up like he did. He wonders out loud if it is okay for someone like him to become a raider, someone who lets bad stuff happen to others because he could not get over his nerves. There is silence in the air as the question lingers around them. The director tells him a little backstory of his own. He tells Semin that before he opened his gym, he used to be a boxer and a really good one. Semin is in disbelief at the information, and the director laughs as he tells him that he used to be quite agile and different than now. The picture that shows up in Semin's mind is very different, however. He continues to say that he used to have a rival who was like a little brother to him. On their last match together, the guy died after being defeated by him. Ever since then, he has not been able to step into the ring anymore. The trauma haunts him even in old age. He asks him if Semin knows why he is telling this to him and explains that he wants Semin to stop being so miserable. Semin looks in confusion as he continues to say that Semin should not feel bad about something that has already happened, and he can't just keep crying about it forever and hide in his room. He says that no human is perfect. When he landed the final blow to his rival, he also knew that the guy would not be able to keep holding on. All humans make mistakes and then regret those mistakes. It's all a scary game of life. But that doesn't mean he should let go of everything. One must keep moving forward, and that's what Semin should do. They give it cheers, and the direction with his face flushed asks Semin if he could have fought Semin back then he would win for sure. The director says that the old he used to be so different, but if he fought with him now, then he might lose since he is now very much older. He is still stronger than an average human being, however. They chug down their drinks, and the night comes to an end. The next day at the Tessem Academy in the VR simulation room, Semin asks his instructor to begin the simulation. The instructor confirms that he wants to fight a wolf and begins the simulation of a Zord. The wolf spawns and lunges at Semin. Semin easily defeats the wolf and finds the power of his opponent to be lacking. His instructor tells him that he must not let his fear or anger confuse him. Before starting the simulation again, he asks Semin once more if he wants to continue the simulation. Semin nods as he says that he wants to fight a stronger opponent. He decides to fight a Sinkus. The Sinkus spawns in front of him. It looks to be a monster that is very huge and large in size, looks to be very dangerous. The monster looms over Semin as he readies himself for the fight. He dashes forwards and slashes at the leg of the monster, followed by multiple other slashes on the body. The monster whips his tail in Semin's direction and tries to smack him, but he ducks just in time to save himself. If only he had such reflexes back then when the moment was all too real. He takes a step back as the monster gets very aggressive and attacks him. He ducks again and readies his sword to use a martial art technique with it to end the monster. With incredible force and power, he uses his attack on the enemy and defeats the monster. He realizes that the more he uses the martial art technique, it makes him keep on reflecting on his own mindset. After the fight is over, he takes several deep breaths to calm down. He remembers back to how Inji was getting swarmed by a bunch of wolves. If only he could go back in time to save him. The Phase 2 of the Sinka simulation begins, and the monster immediately begins to attack him. He keeps on practicing through the days to get even stronger so that something like what happened in the past never happens again. On the day of the second test at the Radar Control Bureau, his testing ground was known as Coliseum. He dresses up in a uniform and protective gear as the instructor there asks him what type of weapon he will be using to defeat the enemies during the test. He picks the sword as his choice of weapon, and when he takes hold of one, he thinks that the sword they provided looks too shabby to fight with, even if it is just for practice. Suddenly, there is a ruckus around him and people exclaim how there is an immortal among them. There is talk of the platinum Mark Li Yun who is supervising their exams. Suddenly, there's a voice speaking in the mic who turns out to be Li Yun who congratulates everyone on passing their first test today. He is going to explain the rules of the second rest, which is the combat evaluation. He explains to the people that the uniform and protective gear they are wearing is equipped with sensors, so if they are hit with a fatal blow, it will automatically count as their death and they will be restricted from moving and progressing forward. But rule is simple at its core of the exam. They must take down as many opponents they can and be the last man standing. After they sign the waiver, they are to be proceed to the testing area and wishes them good luck with their test. All of the participants proceed forwards to take part in the exam and find themselves in an open area with a lot of trees around. The voice at the intercom says that there are still 5 minutes until the test begins for the participants, and until then they can wait on their own. People decide to pick their own spots in the meantime, and Semin thinks of the most advantageous position for him would be to just stand there. When the test actually starts, there is no one around him and a guy comes up to ask him why he is just standing in the middle of where they all started. He tells him that he is doing it for the exact same reason the guy is also there. The guy decides that they might as well watch others while they are together, but before he can continue, he has to defend himself from an attack that Semin throws at him. He deflects the attack as he says that Semin is impatient like always. The two of them spar with each other, and before the guy goes in for an attack, he exclaims that they should at least get to know each other first. Semin blocks his attack from hitting him, and the guy continues to say that they should stop wasting their time fighting each other and start with other people first. Suddenly, Semin throws away his weapon and raises his first. This takes the guy he's fighting by surprise, and after the punch gets landed, the player 222, who was the guy that Semin was fighting, it's eliminated by Semin as a first blood. Semin earns additional points for first victory in the combat test. Semin goes on his way to find other targets. In the monitoring room, all higher people notice how Semin already beat someone within the first 5 minutes of the test starting, and it was member 222 no less. Whoever could have taken down such a guy? A guy says that there's news of an incredible recruit in Iron Horse this year. Infinity Society head shakes his head saying that he has heard that the new recruit has an aura level over 30,000. The Iron Horse head smiles as she says that the new recruit is an enthusiastic fella for sure. She thinks to herself that they must have someone they rely on as well because they look so confident about their teams. Contestants after contestants get their combat disabled, all by one contestant in particular. Contestant 172 gets consecutive 3 kills and earns additional points. Dako Chiaman, the greatest martial artist of all time, has repeatedly said something about fighting using aura means to subordinate the enemy's universe to your own. Semin thinks that fighting with monsters is on a different level than fighting with animals who are using firearms. He finds 2 people fighting head-on with each other and lunges towards them both to catch them by surprise. He thinks that when someone is fighting monsters, one must stake their life and universe. That is the battle of raiders, after all. He defeats both of the contestants at the same time and moves forward to hunt for other contestants. The higher-ups in the monitoring room observe him and his fast movements. The guy from Infinity Society wonders out loud from where Semin jumped in from at them, and the renegade guy tells him that they send a promising candidate of the Weok Association in an instant. The Iron Horse lady stands up in shock as someone tells her that this Semin guy is the one who defeated out candidate earlier. He asks if Semin knew anything about that. She stands in shock the fact that she recognizes him. Contestant 172 ends another contestant and blushes as she wonders who she is going to fight next, almost as if she is having fun making quick work of all these weaklings. As she's walking ahead to search for other opponents, she notices Semin standing there. She remembers that the day of the attack he was terrified and could not do anything at all to help. She smiles at him sweetly, saying that it has been a while. She remembers that he had made a bet with Xiona before. He was just an insignificant guy before. She looks at the number on his protective gear that tells her that he has defeated 10 contestants already. She thinks that he has good skills, but he is consumed by the fear of the monsters. The two of them get ready to spar each other, and as she slashes at him, he realizes how fast and skilled she actually is. Her aura is something he has never seen before and gets further belief that aura is not everything there is to fighting. She makes quick footwork while all he does is deflect and dodge. She takes a step back to think that he is still counterattacking even while being kicked. She wonders if his skills are superior to her own. She smirks. This totally won't cut out to defeat him. She takes out her hair from her ponytail. Seeing people like Semin makes her anxious and uneasy. Her aura completely transforms into something even more intense, and Semin realizes that it resembles a monster's aura. The Fukuba sword means to subdue or to bow down, to make something submit. However, at the same time, it implies hiding. The sword carries within it demons, so it subdues them. That is why the aura of the sword is similar to a monster's aura. He does not understand how such enormous aura can emit a murderous intent like that of a monster, but it is really obvious that she knows his weak point, that he was scared of the monsters that other day she saw him. He takes a defensive stance again and she laughs and says that he is definitely different from before. He replies to her in his sassy way that he can adapt quickly to things. He can't just run away from things again like a wuss now can he. They both emit aura and it looks like a work of fire and water as they both lunge at each other to fight it out. Something in the voice at the intercom says that the individual match ends. As the two of them fight it out, intercom exclaims that the individual match ends. Both of them stop immediately and fall back down to the ground because their protective gear has bound them and stopped them from proceeding any further. The intercom tells them to proceed to the area to get treatment as needed. Semin smiles as he looks up at the sky, sighing in relief that he survived. The final in-depth evaluation begins and with a different format each time. Even top scores in rounds 1 and 2 can't rest easy because nobody knows exactly what the system is. This is definitely the crown jewel of the Raider qualification exam. He sits down at his designated table and notices a paper and pen and wonders if they are going to test their drawing skills like kindergartners. Soon after, it is announced that this year the final evaluation of the Rider qualification exam is an essay that they have to write. This leaves Semin in shock and bewilderment as everyone around him feels the same way he does. The voice again announces, telling them instructions to remain seated until the exam begins, and that if anyone moves, they will get disqualified. The Raider qualification exam final in-depth evaluation. Answer the following questions with own thoughts in 5,000 words or less with 1 hour time limit. The topic for the essay is, why do you want to become a Raider, and what is the mission of a Raider to you? There are murmurs around him about how unforeseen the final evaluation had turned out to be, some whining that they are really terrible at writing and some confessing that the last time they read a book was when they were younger. Semin realizes that everyone is going to write similar things and it's going to become generic, and that is where most will be eliminated. He closes his eyes to think calmly about when it started. When did he become obsessed with becoming a Raider for justice? Suddenly, he has an epiphany. Thinking back on his life, he realizes that he used to believe that a Raider was righteous and he wanted to stand up for his friend getting bullied in school. Since the weak is tossed to the side, he was weak and did not want to meet such a fate. After all, he is an orphan. By the time he realized that he had been abandoned, he got adopted by his current parents, his new parents who took him and raised him as their own. They didn't need words to make him feel loved when they asked him what kind of person he wanted to become, and when his dad said that every person has a purpose in life. When one day they suddenly threw this question of him after sitting him down, they told him that their purpose might be to meet him. They did not use any difficult words to make him understand. They were very coherent in telling him that his biological mother had passed away. When they said goodbye to him when he joined the academy, his mother using comforting words to tell him not to immerse himself too much into training, and his father telling him to stay true to his name, the name that they gave to him. They both wished him to become a Raider for the people, just like his name, which meant world and people. He bowed deeply to them to thank them for raising him. There are only 5 minutes left until the submission of the essay, and he still have not wrote a single word. He takes hold on the pencil and thinks why he was given the power of aura to fight against monster and what must he achieve with it. He remembers back to all his encounters. He realizes that this purpose is to protect the world and keep the peace. That is why he wanted to become a Raider. The exam ended, and a few days later, he opens the door to the hospital room where Inji is staying, and as he reads a novel, he asks whether Semin reads any. He tells him that he does not really read stuff like that and opens a can of drink and asks Inji when he is getting discharged. Inji tells him that he still has a long way to go and that he is planning to study in the meantime. Semin is surprised to hear this because Inji and studying, that combo does not go well together. Inji takes offense and snaps back, saying that just because he does not study does not mean he is not smart enough to study. He suddenly quick fires a question and asks him if he knows the quadratic formula. Semin gives a stern no in response, and Inji starts laughing as she says that Semin is worse than him. Semin laughs as well and pauses for a bit. He tells him that he will make sure to heal his arm, but it will take a while for him. Inji smiles back as he says that he is going to trust him and aim to become a firefighter as well. Semin is surprised to hear that he wants to become a firefighter. Inji tells him that firefighters are just as awesome as raiders. Semin says his goodbyes, and Inji asks him when they can see each other again, and he tells him that they might see each other in 2 years. Semin gets the confirmation for active duty enlistment. Semin sighs as he thinks that his precious youth of 2 years where he could do anything he wanted, he is being held back from enjoying by the tyranny of the state. This outburst of his occurs in public in the middle of the street. The Immortal Unit is a special unit composed to awaken ones who failed the Raider test where he will soon be headed. He enters the unit and looks like he is in pain. The guy at the shop asks him if he is looking a weapon to enlist, and he asks for a claymore. The guy gets excited to show his weapons he crafted to Semin, and he follows close behind skeptically. He tells Semin that a claymore is a weapon with a deep history like the katana and the swayhander. It is often chosen by those who do not like the modern designs very much. Ironheart makes great claymores, but they are very pricey, so many people go for domestic brands which offer good quality at less price, and when it comes to two-handed swords, focusing too much on the style can be risky. He hands a sword to Semin to try it out, and he whips it around to get a feel for the sword. He notices that it is actually not bad at all. The worker laughs with giddiness in his voice, saying that he knew Semin would recognize that something made by a smaller company will be of great quality for the magic circuits, and it is perfect for swinging around without worry. Semin hands him his card and says that he's going to buy the sword, and the guy accepts as he thanks him. As he leaves, Semin thinks to himself that he really wants to punch the guy once because he is so giddy and happy about life. He decides he is going to train at the unit every day until he passes the test, when he retakes it, and then he will be discharged. Near the unit, Corporal Yun Wujia of the Immortal Unit Shield Battalion exclaims that Semin must be stupid. A scared Semin sits in front of him with his bands all chopped up, and the guys asks him what he was thinking when he brought a weapon to the unit. No one has seen soldiers buying guns before enlisting because they are simply not allowed to. He loudly yells an apology, and when he asked who told him to buy a weapon before joining, he replies that the people around him told him to do so. The guy tells him that his social skills must be terrible, and Semin thinks back to the store owner and his instructor who let him do such a thing without telling him that he is not allowed to buy a weapon. The guy turns to another guy standing behind him as he says that he has a troublemaking junior. Gil-hoon tells him that he will turn Semin into a proper person as his senior. He tells him to follow him, and after they are in another area, Gil-hoon tells Semin that the Corporal Yun was just overreacting because they got a new recruit, but he can't guarantee that he will get his weapon back. When Gil-hoon asks him what he wants to eat, he says that he wants choco pie, and Gil-hoon just replies that this is not that kind of place. He tells him to eat comfortably, and they dig into the food. Gil-hoon asks if he knows what kind of place this is. It is not just a place to hold people who failed the exam. In the past, there was a major crisis where the radar system was not well developed and countries sent aid back then, but these days when people mention gates, they often think of dangerous genetic sites or mines. But what happens if raiders can't stop the beasts? Before continuing, he stands up and puts the dishes away. They go outside and climb up a pole using their aura power. He shows him some weird dark fog in front of them. The place is swarming with monsters ahead of them. The reason this unit exists is to prepare for the worst. A smart watch shows the time and starts beeping. It is currently 5 o'clock in the morning. The owner of the watch sits up immediately in bed. He is in a dorm room shared by many other men around his age. He is the first one to wake up. He grabs an empty kettle and walks out of the room. Someone is sitting on a chair outside. The man yawns loudly. The boy with the kettle salutes the sleepy guard. The guard comments how he is the first to wake up. He then asks what is for breakfast. The man, Semin, lists an entire meal plan with yummy dishes. Semin fills the kettle and mentally counts down. 3, 2, 1. A loud drill alarm starts ringing. Semin is back in his shared dorm. He pulls the curtains away to let sunlight in. Semin calls out to everyone to wake up. The men start waking up one by one. Semin walks to someone who is still cozy and cuddly in bed with their blank. This is Sergeant Kim Hyun. Semin offers him some water and informs that the officer for the day is Lieutenant Han. Kim sleepily nods. The men start dressing up in uniforms. Kim asks if everyone has made their beds yet. Semin points at Kim's bed that he also made. Time passes by and all the men are standing in lines. A buff man in a cap tells them that today the dispatch team will return. He commands them to do their duties well and let the dispatch team rest. They will keep everyone safe from any invasions or attacks. 2 men whisper among themselves in the middle of the lines. They confirm about the return of the squad leader. They must be prepared. For what? Very sus. Semin asks what dispatch means. The other gossips that the dispatch team was on a secret mission. They were doing something in North Korea. It's classified information, but North Korea has already fallen. Some of the warlords are trying to protect their towns, but it is already overrun by monsters. To stop the monsters from coming into other nations, the neighbors of North Korea have taken special care to block off the borders. South Korea secretly supports North Korea, but for their own ultimate gain. This is what the dispatch does. The men keep talking. Semin is warned not to get on Sergeant Joan Woo-yeon's bad side. Semin nods to this new info. It is lunchtime. Gil-hoon, Gil for short, asks Semin what is for lunch. Seems like the only thing these people care about is food. Semin rants about the yummy dishes for lunch. They walk in a room together. Someone is sitting on a bed. Gil excitedly informs that this is Sergeant John Woo-yeon and he is finally back. Sergeant Woo-yeon asks Gil who the new kid is. Gil fills him in and Wu Yan leaves to shower. Before leaving, Wu Yan asks Gil to unpack his bag for him. All the dirty tasks are left to the underlings, it seems. Gil isn't unhappy about this. He will happily do anything to make his senior notice him. Wu Yan finally leaves. Seven covers his nose. Wu Yan's bag smells horrible. He asks Gil if washing will get the smell out even. Gil picks the bag up, but something huge falls out. It is a head of a monster. Semen nerds out over the monster ID. This is a big thing. Gil doesn't understand what Semen is on. In order to kill an eremit, you need to be a gold mark. Semen is impressed by Wu Yan's abilities. A shirtless Wu Yan walks out of the shower. He asks if something fun happened while he was away. It seems like he left the two of them to this task on purpose. Gil tells him that a stupid newbie recruit brought a weapon when enlisting. This idiot is Semen. Wu Yan asks to see the weapon. Semen hands Wu Yan the sword. He analyzes it for a second and asks for a name. Semen doesn't understand. Wu Yan repeats angrily. Semen introduces himself. It's a soldier only. Wu Yan asks if Semen likes the sword. Who would have guessed he does? Wu Yan looks unimpressed but asks Semen to continue using it. Semen takes the sword back as Wu Yan questions him. Did he come prepared to be a raider? Semen agrees. Wu Yan asks for a break. They will continue their conversation some other time. When he leaves, Gil turns to Semen. The sergeant never smiles this much. The sword must be a pretty little ting. Gil asks where the sword is from. It's from Jioshan Metal Industry. Gil realizes why Wu Yan smiled. The Jioshan Metal Industry belongs to Wu Yan's father. Semen is very sly to try this move on the sergeant. Semen asks about Wu Yan. He seems like a dude with a lot of aura. In the back, Wu Yan asks someone for a hairdryer. Very demure and very cutesy. Gil tells that as long as Semen doesn't mess up, he will be okay. If he makes even a small mistake, he will no longer exist, either by the hands of the surgeon or the monsters. Gil smiles at Semen. He looks worried for himself. You don't give this sort of news to someone who will fight monsters very soon. Evening soon comes and the soldiers are back in the training fields. Some big rough guy is asking the rookie some questions. He asks Semen what Brucus is. A Brucus is a small monster with very sharp teeth. They attack in a group. Sometimes you can encounter a warrior Brucus. It is much bigger in size and power. Semen continues to nerd out, but this makes the instructor sus. Was Semen previously a mega nerd who took ecology classes or something? Semen denies. It's just a regular raider candidate. The instructor moves on. He asks Wu Yan to demonstrate how to defeat a Brucus. You need to poke your sword into the Brucus. They will now start their poking practice. The guys comment on Semen's quick attacks. He might just be a hidden genius. Suddenly, the emergency alarm rings. Everyone is shook. An instructor shouts at the soldiers to gather around. The grounds have been invaded by a Brucus. How surprising. The instructor asks them to attack it as they have been rehearsing. He tells the soldiers to not lay their lives on the line. They won't be paid for it. Orders are given out and the soldiers prepare to fight. Some of the land puppies, the Brucus, step on a landmine. The soldiers must not gather together. They must attack in scattered patterns. Somehow Semen finds himself face to face with a horde of Brucus. He is scared. His fellows support him from behind. They prepare to attack. Semen starts to glow blue, but no one notices. They fight the Brucus together, slashing their swords, stabbing the Brucus. They successfully fight the monsters, but suddenly a warrior Brucus appears. The soldiers start to panic. No one can do anything about the chaos. The leaders give out orders to help defeat the monsters. Semen gets a flashback. He remembered the dog monsters attacking him long ago. He was helpless and weak then. He won't be held back now. He charges at a warrior Brucus who is about to eat a soldier. He tries to fight off the Brucus, but realizes he isn't as strong as he thought. The warrior Brucus are on a whole different level. Semen knows the weak spots of the enemy, but can't even get his sword through. He is just useless. He concentrates and the blue aura around him gets larger. If it's a match of strength, let's see how the monsters hold up against more strength. Semen easily slices through the monster and defeats him. His colleagues and seniors watch him in amazement. Another Brucus attacks Semen. He casually defeats it and calls them stubborn little things. He screams at the rest of them to come at him. Finally, they've defeated all the monsters. The injured soldiers are carried away to heal their injuries. Semen lets out a big sigh and sits on his bum. Suddenly, someone calls out to him. Give the poor kid a break. He stands up again. His senior congratulates him. You did a very impressive job of handling the monster outbreak. But this is all very sus. Did you really fail the Raider exam? Or is he hiding something? People are starting to doubt him. Semen laughs. He failed the essay section. Semen offers his senior some water, who calls him a brat who doesn't respect his senior enough to give him a clean water bottle. The next day, all of the training soldiers and their mothers know that an amazing talent has been recruited in the soldiers. People are gossiping about it like it's some hot tea. People ask Semin for the breakfast list again. He has it memorized. He flaunts his new respect in the ranks. After all, he is the super cool kid who saved Advice. Suddenly, Wu Yan appears behind Semin. He calls Semin and Semin jumps. Wu Yan tells Semin how quickly he has made it through the ranks thanks to his outstanding performance. Wu Yan glazes Semin and tells him that he is very brave to have fought a warrior Brucus all by himself. Semin thinks it's a bad thing and apologizes immediately. He really is an idiot underneath all this. Wu Yan asks him to follow. Semin finds them at the training grounds. Both of them have swords in their hands. Wu Yan looks at him very seriously. He asks if Semin has ever spared before. Semin agrees. Wu Yan suddenly attacks Semin. He orders Semin to only block all the attacks he throws at him. Wu Yan is quick with his attacks, but Semin doesn't have a hard time blocking. Their swords clash against each other. Semin notices how fast and precise Wu Yan is. None of his attacks are mismatched. He strikes with precision every time. It seems like Wu Yan practices this technique and has mastered it entirely. Wu Yan stops attacking. He asks Semin to attack now. Semin comments on the sword. Wu Yan lore drops on Semin. Both of their swords have been manufactured by the same company. Semin's sword is similar to a claymore, just more elegant. Wu Yan compliments Semin's sharp eye. They start sparring again. The other soldiers notice this practice and start to silently fanboy for their favorite. Semin is very clever to be able to block every attack so effortlessly. Semin thinks of the attacks. It's not a slow, coordinated attack. Instead, Wu Yan strikes as soon as he can. Wu Yan is on a completely different level compared to Bang You Bai. Semin breaks out of his thoughts as Wu Yan attacks. His attacks on their own are pure strength. Semin falls down and concludes the end of the spar session. Wu Yan praises him for a good job. Wu Yan and Semin are both corporals now. They request a deployment together from their senior. They will work together. The senior asks for their names. They shout their titles and names. The senior looks at them both with a very stoic face. He looks at Semin. Semin has a very confident aura. The senior thinks and then welcomes them to the team. Jeeps whip past an open desert-like area. Wu Yan and Semin sit together. Semin asks Wu Yan why he joined the deployment team. Wu Yan says it's not a bad thing, but he didn't want to stay stuck as Sergeant Wu Yan before he got discharged. He admits that Semin is a fun guy. He slings his arm around Semin and tells him to take good care of his senior in North Korea. If Semin messes up, he will go missing. Semin simply asks what missing means. Seems like the military is slacking these days. The soldiers gather around their new instructor who welcomes them. He then tells them about their latest mission. They will contact the troops in Kakan and return. One of the soldiers asks what they will do when they meet the other team in Kakan. That is classified information. They will all depart after lunch. Semin asks a soldier who the guy standing next to the instructor is. He is Major Kim Kyujin. He is the person in charge of this deployment. Semin thinks how creepy Major Kyujin's eyes are. He is getting freaked out by looking at them. The soldiers march forward. Monsters have heightened senses, so they had to travel by foot in order to not be detected. Wu Yan asks Semin if this is what he was afraid of. There aren't even animals in the forest. Semin says that no animals in such an area are a sign of something being off. There's a lot of monsters here, which is why there's no animals. Semin activates his powers. His head glows blue. He suddenly detects something. He grabs Wu Yan by the arm and warns him that something is under his feet. Suddenly, the ground beneath them erupts and a monster reveals itself. It is a statum. A statum is a beast that hides underground and it causes explosions at people's feet. Semin is about to fall in a hole left by the statum, but thankfully Wu Yan grabs him. He pulls Semin to safety, and they decide to hide in the shadows. A statum detects vibrations, so they'll attack from a safe range within the smoke. Explosions start everywhere. The soldiers are asked to retreat. Semin stands next to a fallen soldier who thinks it's his last few moments. Semin gives him hope, but suddenly the explosions stop too. Semin turns to look at the cause and is shocked. Major Kyujin is glowing blue. After the attack is over, Semin sees someone talking to Major Kyujin. He wonders what is in the bag the soldier is holding. The soldiers gather around Major Kyujin. He praises them for fighting bravely. The injured men will be sent back to the headquarters, but the rest will carry on. After this, no one will return alive from the dangers ahead. The soldiers start marching. They gossip among themselves about how cool it was to encounter so many rare monsters at a single time. It is currently day 1 of deployment. 2 men are heavily injured and return to base. 48 men are left standing. It is day 3 of deployment. In the last 3 days, the soldiers have fought 5 major and minor battles. It's a rough journey. A lot of people have been injured in this little time. The major signals the troops to stop. They will make camp here. The soldiers take off their heavy bags and stretch their sore muscles. The major is a secretive man. He doesn't tell anyone why they stopped and what they're waiting for. Maybe these soldiers are just monster fodder for the major to toss to the hungry beasts. The soldiers aren't allowed to wander off, but one man is seen snooping around. Semin asks where he is going. He needs to take a piss. During this time, Semin uses his powers and analyses the ground. The more north they head, the stronger his Kai flow feels. Suddenly, he detects something. It is moving towards him at a very fast speed. He shouts at the troops that some beasts are incoming from the back. Everyone jumps up to fight the monsters. Semin locks in ready to fight. From the bushes, some men in green uniform appear. The beast introduces himself. He is not a beast at all. He is an ordinary man called Rijulhan. The man, Rijulhan, walks up to Major Kyujin. They chat like old buddies. Major Kyujin comments that the beasts have increased in number from last time. Rijulhan says that the monsters have been changing habitat. He gets serious and asks for the good. Major Kyujin signals a soldier to bring the bag. The soldiers watching this wonder what is inside the bag. It could be money, gold, anything at all. Someone makes fun of Semin for his false alarm. He simply blushes and says that mistakes are natural. Semin asks a senior surgeon if he's not at all curious. He says that their lives are on the line. In matters like these, it is wise to keep your head. The troops start walking again. The soldiers wonder if the injured men made it back. They were safe. The joke about the soldiers who lost their lives. At least their families get paid hefty. Suddenly, Rijulhan asks them to stop. The road divides and he offers a shortcut. Monster habits are changing. They need to take better ways. Rijulhan whacks his brain. He remembers the name of the monster. A kinensis appeared in the current path. Major Kyujin just looks at Rijulhan. The soldiers at the back wonder why the leaders stopped. A soldier asks Semin what a kinensis is. It is a plant that eats humans. Someone from Rijulhan's troops compliments Simon. Bro knows his facts. Simon asks the green uniformed soldier his name. It's rare to find someone so educated. Semin asks if the other troops came to greet them all the way from Gekun. The green uniformed guy smiles and agrees. Semin asks his name again. The green guy just says it's unnecessary, it will part ways soon enough. Suddenly, someone goes missing. The troops are surrounded by a horde kinensis. It was a trap laid by Rijulhan. Major Kyujin grabs him by the collar. Rijulhan smiles at him. He should have known better than to trust anyone. The soldiers shout orders to retreat. Semin dodges attacks left and right. The green uniformed guy notices this and tries to finish him. They're surrounded by both monsters and humans alike. On one side, a kinensis attacks. On the other, the green uniformed guy. Semin is stuck between the two. He dodges both of them and thinks about how stupid this is. A joint attack with a monster is just ridiculous. He dodges all their attacks and calls out to Wu Yan. He answers back. Wu Yan tells Semin that he needs to run away. The fight between monsters, men, and more men continues. Rijulhan screams at Kyujin while attacking him. He can't escape so easily while trying to harm the Norse boss. Kyujin defends and says that his people were already planning a rebellion. Rijulhan attacks again and in season opening. Major Kyujin already got it covered though. He shoots a blue laser from his eye. The dudes keep fighting. Suddenly, Rijulhan stabs Kyujin in the shoulder. He falls down from the impact and throws up blood. He is awfully near a kinensis. If he doesn't do anything, he will get eaten. Major Kyujin uses his power and annihilates the kinensis. He glows with a blue aura and prepares to attack Rijulhan. Semin looks at this scene from some distance. The Major has completely lost his mind. The amount of power he is using will end everyone. Wu Yan lies on the ground. The man he is fighting says that he is a prick. He goes to attack him again, but Wu Yan uses his powers to end the man. Behind him, someone laughs and asks if he is okay. Semin reaches out to Corporal Wu Jin, severely injured and crawling on the ground. He holds onto the corporal's cloths, who turns around to look at him with furious eyes. The corporal bashes Semin's face, kicking him away with cold inconsideration. Semin helplessly lays on the battlefield, injured and bleeding. The green shirt guy's monstrous steps approach the helpless Semin. He mocks the corporal for running off to save himself, saying that these idiots have no sense of loyalty. Hearing the opponent trudging towards him, Semin thinks that he needs to run away. Rijulhan holds up his blade, but Semin is completely defeated. He thinks that he just wants to rest now and closes his eyes. Semin opens his eyes to an unfamiliar place. His wounds and injuries have been bandaged up. He gets up and wonders where he is. Looking around, he notices his sword beside him and reaches for it. He wonders if there were any other survivors besides himself. Looking at his sword, he can't help but recall the corporal's face when he abandoned Semin. He decides not to think about it and puts his blade back down. Suddenly, he hears someone approaching. Thinking quickly, he gets back in the bed and pretends to be unconscious. A mysterious person walks in the room, talking about how long it's been since he's had fresh meat. Semin starts to sweat nervously, hearing the man's strange remarks. The man wonders if he should make soup, stew, or perhaps fry the fresh meat. Feeling threatened, Semin quietly reaches for the sword while the man is turned away. He slashes his blade at the man, but suddenly there's nothing in front of him. Semin becomes confused, wondering if he just saw a ghost. Suddenly, he hears the man again and looks up to see him floating above his head. Semin is completely creeped out and screams in shock. The man says that he was only teasing Semin since he was pretending to be asleep. He asks if Semin has lost his mind, raising his blade against his savior. Semin asks who the man is, but he says that this kid has really lost his mind. Feeling disrespected, the man tells him to mind his tone and kicks him in the stomach. Semin screams in pain, getting pummeled by an old man. The man says that judging by Semin's appearance, he must be a radar operator. He says that since Semin is already injured, you won't beat him anymore. Semin still hasn't recovered from the man's kick, but suddenly comes to a realization. He wonders if this man is a legendary marshal living alone in the land of demons. Just like all the video games, after accidentally saving a young man's life, he will take the youth as his student and impart his invaluable skills. Realizing the opportunity, Semin apologizes to the man and thanks him for saving his life. He introduces himself to the man and bows with respect. The man explains that he is Haisung, a fallen monk of Shaolin. Semin realizes that his suspicions were correct. Haisung smacks Semin's head, saying that young people these days read way too many martial art novels. Holding his head in pain, Semin asks the elder who he is and where they are. The man tells him to reveal his identity first, and Semin tries to explain that he already introduced himself. Haisung wants to know what Semin is because he possesses such an unusual aura. The man describes Semin's aura as pure and harmonious, free and boundless. It feels like it can simultaneously be anything or nothing at all in this world. He points his baton at Semin's chest and says that this energy is indeed Taeguk, in other words, yin-yang. Semin is shocked by the man's observation, and the man says that whatever the case, this must be his karma. Feeling concerned, Semin asks Haisung if he knows what happened to the others. Haisung tells him that most of the southern soldiers perished and the northern soldiers retreated. Haisung tells him that his comrade abandoned him and the one emitting the strange glow from his eyes survived along with Semin. Semin asks if he will be able to return, and the man says who knows. They emerge from the underground bunker and the man introduces himself properly as No Hakche. Semin can tell from his accent that he is not originally from the north. The man tells Semin that he is correct, and Semin asks the elder how he ended up here. Hakche tells him that he has unfinished business, so he is staying here temporarily. Semin asks about this business, but Hakche says that he must be hungry and they should eat first. He throws some snacks towards Semin and he asks where the man got these from. Hakche says that he got them from a supermarket and asks if Semin thinks an old man like him can't go shopping. Semin worriedly reminds him that this is North Korea they're talking about. Later, they set up some pots to cook the noodles, but Hakche gets up. Semin asks where he's going and the man explains that he's just going for a stroll. He tells Semin to focus on recovering and stop overthinking. He says that right now is the time to take care of his body. He tries to call out to the elder who walks away. Semin tries to tell him that being alone makes him think even more. Semin sighs and immediately starts worrying about how the situation was handled in the military and if his parents were informed. He shakes his head, trying to shake off all the worrisome thoughts. He realizes that the elder was right. He starts cycling his aura, realizing that he needs to relax and focus on healing. 10 days pass by in the blink of an eye. Semin is once again cooking something to eat as he calls out to the elder. He asks Hakche what he's been working on out here. The man asks Semin if he really wants to know, and Semin says that he's very curious. Hakche decides that he has recovered enough by now and tells Semin to follow him. Semin is surprised that the man is immediately ready to show him as he hops around on treetops like it's nothing. Semin tells the elder man to wait for him as he tries to run after but can't catch up to the old man. He starts huffing with exhaustion and wonders how this old man is so fast. They both sit atop a tree and Hakche asks Semin if he can see something. Semin is shocked by the sight. A base for the northern military is right in front of them. Hakche becomes serious and tells Semin that there is something evil in there. Semin asks the elder what he means. Hakche gives the most chilling response, explaining that it is a gateway to hell. The military base is surrounded by a dark, ominous aura. Semin is shocked to hear that this place contains a passage connected to hell. The energy surrounding the area makes it clear that it's certainly not connected to heaven. Hakche reaches into his pocket, pulling out some alcohol. He says that seeing such a sight, one is bound to want a drink. Semin asks the man for a sip, and he flat out rejects this eager youngster. The man points to the base and explains that the army is conducting human experiments there. Semin is shocked to hear the information, and Hakchi tells him that they are using that demonic power to carry out these experiments. The old man tells Semin that the South Korean soldiers are the same. They claim this thing without even knowing what it is, and Semin asks him what it is. Hakchi replies that it is an evil power that shouldn't be here. Suddenly, the two are stopped in their tracks by an ominous figure blocking their path. The man asks who the suspicious youngster next to Hakchi is, and Semin immediately notices his strange aura. It's the same aura as the one in the pit. Hakchi recognizes the man as Min Chiol, saying that he thought he was in the stream. Min Chiol says that he heard the news of this old man passing through and came over quickly. Hakchi thanks the man for coming all the way out here for him and tells Semin to get out of here. Semin asks what about Hakchi, and he says that he needs to deal with this guy. Min Chiol draws his blade, ready to take on the elder. Semin straight up refuses to leave, and Hakchi calls him a mannerless, insolent boy. Semin is worried if the elder will really be fine on his own. Hakchi says that he isn't old enough to lose to a weak opponent like this. Semin thinks to himself that he's aware of Hakchi's strength, but this guy looks really dangerous, like a demon in human form. Min Chiol is tired of the wait, charging at the pair with his blade. Hakchi shoves Semin to the side and sends him flying, telling him to get out. Semin realizes that he is very strong but still wishes him to be safe. Semin runs away with everything he's got until suddenly his path is blocked by a bestial dog. Semin realizes that it is a Jorg. Semin naturally reaches for his sword, but it's not there. He remembers that he left it behind. The Jorg angrily growls at Semin and running out of options. Semin calmly reaches out his hand. He sits down and starts to pet the Jorg, leaving the creature surprised. He recognizes how the Jorg feels right now, as he was also alone and beaten up after a long battle. He says that he knows the Jorg doesn't want to die and tells it to follow him. The Jorg becomes somewhat tamed and starts listening to Semin's orders. They walk through the forest together, back to their base. Semin begins to fill a pot with water, and the Jorg is anxiously growling. He asks the dog if it's hungry. He tosses the dog some meat, saying that his teeth seem to be fine, so he can probably eat this. Semin rethinks his entire life, recalling how just a little while ago he was thinking of safely completing his service and taking the awakening test. And now he's here, befriending a Jorg and waiting for an old man fighting off a demon alone. Semin sighs in frustration, thinking about his life. He looks back at his younger self, munching away at food just like this beaten-down Jorg and wasting his life away. Suddenly, his vision becomes horrific. The man he once was transforms into an angry demon and attacks him. Coming back to his senses, Semin realizes that it is the Jorg attacking him. Semin isn't worried, though. He sits calmly in front of the jaws of the beast, calling it a good boy and congratulating it for finding some food. Finally, he takes the Jorg out with on swift blow. Semin says that this is the true nature of demons. They may temporarily submit to humans, but their instincts are stronger than their will. He washes off the blood of the monster in the river, and images of the corporal running away and abandoning him come back to his mind. He looks at his own reflection, thinking that he understands now. This is just the way of life. After a while, the sun goes down and the elder returns. Semin eagerly greets the man, asking if he's okay. Hakchi jokingly asks if Semin is displeased by his safe return. Semin says that if the elder is completely fine, then that guy must have been really weak. Before he can finish the thought, Hakchi smacks him on the face with his baton. Semin asks if he won, and the man says that it was a draw. Hakchi asks Semin how long until he is discharged. Taken aback by the sudden question, Semin tells him that he will be discharged in about a year. He wonders why the elder is suddenly asking about that. Hakchi reaches into his pocket and pulls out his alcohol once again. He looks at Semin with a solemn expression, pondering his next words. Finally, Hakchi hands the alcohol bottle to Semin and asks him for a favor. Hakchi asks this promising young soldier to use that time for him.